So hello, Alexia. Welcome.
Hello.
So for those of you who don't know who you are Alexia Genta, and you are the founder of Geraldine London and Alexia Genta Alterations.
Alexia Alterations.
Sorry, I knew I was going to get it wrong.
That's fine.
So thank you so much. So this is the first time we've met, isn't it? But I really want to talk to you because your PR agent got in touch with me much earlier in the year, I think during the first lockdown.
Yes.
When it was a time of like, a lot of people's businesses were really struggling and a lot of people's businesses had closed. What I really loved about your story is you saw that and you set up a totally new business, but cleverly connected to what it was that you did. And you gave money to Women's Aid.
Yep.
So
that's correct.
Yeah, so tell me about that. So what happened when lockdown started? What was your business before, and what happened to you when lockdown started?
Sure. So in 2018, I launched a clothes alterations company, which I'm actually in right now. I'm in my fitting room. And the idea was to create a super high-end alterations atelier for affluent customers in London. I felt like that this didn't exist. And over time, we really managed to get an amazing customer base. We had royalty, celebrities. We even made a dress for Claudia Winkleman. She wore it on Strictly Come Dancing. So it was all very cool. And we were reaching a stage where we could see that we broke even, we could grow and be profitable. And it was a nice place to be after 2 years. And unfortunately, in March 2020, we had to temporarily close our doors during lockdown. Now, a couple of weeks before, I think it was maybe 3 weeks beforehand, Italy went into lockdown. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, we need to get prepared. You know, before Italy went into lockdown, I didn't think such a thing would ever happen. But then it became very real. And a couple of my seamstresses are freelancers. And at that point, we didn't know what support the government would give to freelancers. We knew that for employees, there would be a furlough scheme, but for freelancers, it was a huge question mark. So my seamstresses were very worried. And I was trying to find a solution. I asked them, what can you do from home? Obviously, alterations is a customer-facing service, and we were not allowed to do it anymore. And anyway, there was no more demand for it. So I have so much fabric upstairs in my workroom, and I realized, oh my God, I have so much beautiful fabric, from shortening hems of Gucci dresses where the lady wore it once as an evening gown and she wants it as a mini dress, for example. Or I never wanted to throw it away because it seemed like such a waste. And I asked them, would you be able to make something with that fabric? And they all told me, both of them, they told me, our flats are very small. We don't have huge working space, etc. And quite literally that day, I was wearing a headband. I always loved headbands. I'm the generation of gossip girl. It's very embarrassing, but I am. And I grew up watching Blair Waldorf wearing headbands. And obviously, I love it. And I asked them, could you make incredible headbands? And they agreed. And we spent 2 weeks in the atelier sorting out all the fabrics and coming out with different models and everything. And both of them got domestic sewing machines to bring back home, all of the tools, etc. I sent both of them in black cabs back home, and that was it. We were ready. We were going to FaceTime every day and have our product development. And after that, we had 1 month. They had 1 month to make a nice stock of beautiful headbands. I had 1 month to create the website, the company structure. The bank account came later because it took a very long time because of COVID. But everything, the marketing, the branding, everything. And 1 month later, we launched, and that was amazing. It was so rewarding to create. It took me a year and a half to create Alexia Alterations, and I love to say it took me 1 month to do Geraldine London, which is quite nuts. And after that, it was quite amazing. So I had some support from family and friends who obviously, and clients, of course, from Alexia Alterations, who bought some headbands. But quickly on Instagram, I got a few direct messages. For example, a journalist from Women's Wear Daily. I had Belgravia magazine, and a few of them started popping up and say, "Oh, I quite like your story." Or sometimes I would message them first, always on Instagram. And people were so kind because they liked the story. They liked that I was donating to Women's Aid. I think that I think a lot of people have been touched by what's been happening there. And it's really thanks to all the support I've received also that this was a success. So we sold out in a month also, like a month, maybe a little bit less. And then we kept going, and my seamstresses were paid exactly the same amounts as they would have had there been no COVID. So they're completely unaffected. So,
That's
yeah.
brilliant. So was that it? Was it like you had that one lot of stock, you sold out, or are you gonna carry on doing headbands, or?
Oh, we are carrying on now. It's really my baby. We have so many amazing projects. So we continue making collection after collection. And everything is made in our atelier at the moment. Everything is made by us with the upcycled fabrics from alterations. But of course, now we're starting to run out. So we also use fabric remnants, which is essentially the end of rolls. So fabric shops, when they only have 1 meter or 2 meters left of fabric, they struggle to sell it because obviously no one can make a jacket or dress out of only 2 meters. And because I have a good network, a good relationship with those high-end suppliers, they sometimes give me a call and they say, "Alexia, come on over. We have some nice fabric for you to check out." So then I'll go.
I love it. So it's kind of like an accidental business, but has been phenomenally successful. And
yeah, it's completely accidental. Yeah.
And so where do you see this in like 5 years' time? Do you see Geraldine London growing and growing? Other lines maybe added? What's your vision?
I think so. I think headbands are becoming more and more popular at the moment. Perhaps it's because of Zoom calls, for example, where you can only be seen from the neck up. And so I think people like that. And I've had a few requests even from retailers asking if I could do wholesale. Now, right now we can't because our volumes are so small. But I'm already looking at how we can grow to be able to do some wholesale. And of course, I intend to grow my brand. There are so many tools. I mean, I'm learning e-commerce since March. I didn't know e-commerce very much, but actually now I'm realizing there are all these tools to be able to increase your sales and to be able to engage with your customers, etc. And I think it's so cool to be able to do this by myself without relying on someone else. And with time, I think the company will grow. I will learn more, and hopefully I will be able to keep getting better and better.
And what about Alexia Alterations? What's happening with that?
So Alexia Alterations is not as happy a story. Right now it's a question mark. Obviously our costs are very high in terms of our rent, because we want it to be a very high-end atelier. So I have 2 big costs. I have my seamstresses, because if I offer the best service, I need the most skilled ladies. And my rent, because my customers, they will not step outside central London. And by central London, I mean Belgravia, Knightsbridge, or Mayfair. They will not find me, I don't know, in any
the cheapest places, basically.
No, they will not bother, It will be too much of an adventure, I think. And of course, it's a shame, but our landlords are being very difficult, and it is hard to have these conversations with them. Although I understand that for them it's a difficult time. So the future for Alexia Alterations is a little bit uncertain. We're fighting with everything we have, but at the end of the day, there needs to be an arrangement for us to stay in business. You cannot pay the rent for a full year when you've been in business properly for only 1/4 of that.
Absolutely. So how did you come, because I know I know your background is in corporate, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So how did you, what was your career before, and how did you get into this kind of work?
So first I went to university. I studied business and Chinese in Nottingham. And then I did a master in marketing at a business school in France called ESCP, which is a good one that the corporates kind of like. And after that, I did all sorts of experience. So for example, I worked at Pret a Manger, which I loved. I think it's such a cool company to work for. It has such good culture. And I learned everything about customer service that I know. Weirdly, I'm in luxury, but actually I know it from Pret because they really nailed it. And with them, I worked about how to set up a Pret in China. So I was on the team to do this. And then later on, I worked for Unilever, and I actually did the marketing for PG Tips. So all the monkey adverts. And that was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I always loved marketing more than anything. I didn't care what I sell. Of course, I'm more drawn to luxury products because of my family. My father was a watch designer, so he always had this incredible attention to detail. So even though I don't really buy luxury for myself very much, I love looking at it. I love beautiful things. And when I was at Unilever, even though I was convinced that marketing was all I needed, I later on realized it's so depressing to negotiate a deal with Tesco to put 300 tea bags pack for £1.50 on their shelf. It's just annoying. There was no passion in it anymore. So that's why I left.
So how did you always have like this, are you a seamstress yourself, or did you just see it as a business opportunity, or how did you go from selling PG Tips for Unilever?
Yeah, it's really random.
To get your dresses in Belgravia?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair question. And so basically at Unilever, I was earning a decent salary, and at some point I was able to save up enough to buy a beautiful dress. And I remember it was from a designer called Dries van Noten. I never know how to pronounce it. I think it is Dries van Noten. And it was a beautiful hot pink satin dress. And I was so proud of it, because with the money that I earned, it was a really big deal. But I needed to have it altered. And I was told by some ladies who are very much in the know in the fashion world here. And they told me, oh, you have to go to this place. The place that I will obviously never tell anyone what it is.
Competition.
I'd get into trouble, I think. And when I went, I was really disappointed. The experience was, it was a dusty carpet. There were pins on the floor, so you don't want to put your bare feet on it. The gentleman was eating a sandwich, and he didn't wash his hands in between, and I could see the grease marks on the satin because it's not like cotton or something. You really can see it. And it's like the classic thing where the curtains don't close properly and you're hiding so no one walking on the street can see you. And it hit me. I thought, wow, like, is this really what this industry is like? I was really surprised knowing how many wealthy ladies there are from all over the world who are shopping in London. Is this where they go to get their clothes altered? And at that point, I think at the back of my mind, I was already a little bit unhappy at work. So then I think subconsciously I was always looking for something, but I didn't know what. And then this hit me and I felt, okay, I'm going to do it. So obviously I did my research, etc. And it all started making sense and I went for it.
So I'm really curious about this because this is something I've done in my life. If I'm not happy, it's like jumping off a cliff, you just kind of make a leap. But there are a lot of people who find that very difficult, who are probably out there right now who aren't happy. And how do you find the courage to, even though you might have savings and even though you're kind of thinking, oh, there's an opportunity there, it's still a massive leap to go from a really secure, well-paid job into the complete unknown. So how did you, was there, I know for myself, like I could get sometimes in a point where I am so unhappy that it's almost easier to make that difficult leap than it is to stay where I am. Was that the case for you, or what gave you that courage to make the leap?
I think to have as a pragmatic answer as possible. I mean, I'm half Swiss, so maybe that's why. But I think what I did is I kept working for a long time while I had that idea.
Mhm.
And I really did my research. But when I'm telling you I did my research, it was to the point where I would take some holiday days, I had some days off, and I would stand outside my competitors, my future competitors' place, and I would count how many clients came in and out.
Mhm.
Like I really took the research to another level, to the point where I felt really comfortable, and I felt, okay, I really understand what this entails. I also took night classes, like sewing classes. I spoke to tailors. I understood everything. I could really comprehend how I was going to do this. And only once I felt really comfortable. So it's a leap in the unknown. It's true, because I was surprised 1,000 times afterwards. But still, I felt like I had a good grasp of what was coming at me. And so that's how I tend to make decisions.
So yeah, so it was a very calculated kind of risk because you had done all of that checking and measuring literally in terms of how many people came in and out. So
Yeah. But of course, I'm making it sound so easy. But of course, a million times I said, I can't do this, are you crazy? And then at the end of the day, it's also your support network. I mean, for me, it's my mother and my husband. And they are always the ones encouraging me, telling me it's going to be okay. And, you know, report them. They repeat the same thing every day, 10 times. But it's that also makes a huge difference, I think.
and what about, because your father was a watch designer, is entrepreneurialism in your family? Is there, have you seen, did you grow up watching other people run businesses?
Yeah, I definitely did. So my father and my mother were running their watch brand. They were selling watches all over the world, and I definitely always grew up in that environment. And it was really interesting because my dad was not exactly a businessman. My father was really an artist, and he had incredible vision, etc. But he didn't have the business brain. But my mother does, and it was so interesting to me to see my mom manage my dad's creativity for commercial reasons, and him fighting her because he just disagreed with the commercial version of what he thought was perfection. And this is something I love, and I think that's also why perhaps I also went into a more luxury or more artistic, where you develop a beautiful product, because I love this battle between creativity and business. And I think if you manage it quite well, it leads to something really great.
It does, but it is something, when I kind of work with lots of different types of entrepreneurs, and there's two types that really struggle with the financial side of it. One is sort of artists and creative people, and the others are in the kind of more caring side of things, like healthcare or, you know, products that nurture people. And there's sort of like almost like a guilt that art becomes, or caring becomes, dirty, kind of sullied when there's money involved, that you should just do it for the love of it. But of course,
Yeah.
you can't eat with kind of the love doesn't feed you and doesn't pay your mortgage. There does need to be well, your dad was really lucky having your mum. There needs to be that commercial side, but also,
Yes.
you know, on a greater level, you could be the best artist in the world, but if you aren't earning money from that, you can't afford to do your art, and therefore the world isn't going to have your art. So you do have to have a viable business in
Yeah.
order for the world to have your talents.
Yeah, completely.
So I'm really curious. So what are the best things you learned about customer service from Pret? What are the secrets of really great customer service?
Well, really, with Pret, it was actually I expressed myself in the wrong way. It was um, more management of the employees. Sorry, sometimes it's my French.
Okay.
But what I learned from Pret was that to always listen to the people who work in the shops.
Mm.
So at Pret, it's not just a corporate thing where we want to make the people who work in the shops, like the shop manager, etc., feel special. Is that we really, I say we because I still feel like I'm part of it. They really feel that way, that they are the most important people, and they listen to them so closely. And of course, with Pret, I remember you have to be fast. You need to understand that the customer needs things done quickly. You know, I remember, I think it was a coffee needs to be served within, I think, 1 minute only. If it's more, then the customer gets annoyed. And if there's no coffee, it needs to be within 30 seconds. Like, it was just crazy. And they had all this data. But I think ultimately what I learned is that you need to have your people happy and your employees happy. Otherwise, the service will be a disaster. And I definitely applied this here. But I love who I work with. I love my seamstresses. I think they are tremendous ladies who are often, seamstresses are often undervalued. They're considered, you know, this manual labor that work in a basement somewhere, and you know, and actually they're ladies who have worked. I mean, the one I currently have upstairs, she has over 40 years of sewing expertise. She used to work for Ralph and Russo and, you know, incredible couture houses. I mean, I can't help but have huge respect for my employees, and then they feel that. And I think that creates a lovely relationship between the two. And I did learn this from Pret because I think that they do that.
Brilliant. So what, so you said obviously taking some lessons from Pret in detail, like you did a lot of research before you launched your first business. Now you have two. What are the things that have most surprised you about running a business that with all that research you could never have anticipated?
Okay, so there's two sides to it. One is functional, one is emotional, I guess. So so from you know, I've definitely learned that a business plan is good to make, but it actually doesn't happen. I would say triple the cost, double the time everything takes you. You know, and I'm Swiss. I'm really good at timekeeping. I'm good at organizing stuff, but it just didn't happen. And I would say it's so much harder to get customers through the door or to sell. I mean, it's easier when you're a service. I found it was much easier to get customers through the door in Alexia Alterations rather than sell headbands, because obviously I don't have the brick and mortar. So and sometimes, because I'm in the luxury world, sometimes with alterations I overestimated how much people would be willing to pay for things, and price setting was a very big challenge for me, and I had to keep on adapting it until I found the perfect, but it took me a long time. And these are things that you base your whole business plan on. So you can imagine the impact. From an emotional point of view, I intellectually understood that it would be a challenging thing, that it would be a roller coaster, you know, all the things you hear all the time. But I didn't realize how crazy this experience would be and the tool it has. And I had to learn to take a break, and I'm still learning. It's very hard, but it's for me, it's the biggest challenge. And it was my biggest surprise was how impacted I was.
And how did that affect your, I know you say you're married, and has that affected sort of the ripples in your life? Because I know, like, when you first started, it could be almost obsessive, can't it, when you have your business? And I know, like, sometimes my husband is like, really, we don't have to talk about this again? Because, you know, especially when you have your own business, you don't have a colleague to talk to, and you want to go home, and it's so fascinating to you, but you don't realize, you forget other people aren't as interested as you.
Well, actually, I have a few friends who are women, who are married and who are entrepreneurs. And the men are starting to joke that they're going to create a support network who don't have to deal with us, which I really understand. I'm very lucky. I have a husband who's incredibly patient, but he had to learn a lot because he works for a bank. Mm-hmm. And sometimes he makes comments that I can't stand. So for example, he'll say, yes, so I'll tell him what my problem is. And he said, yes, but Alexia, the CEO of our bank, once he had this problem and this is how he solved it. And I said, yeah, but the CEO of your bank is, he's in a different situation. It doesn't apply. So for a while, there was a disconnect. Even though he has the biggest heart and he wanted to help me, he wasn't helping me because he wasn't saying the right things, and I was getting annoyed. And I think it took a while and a lot of communication for us to understand what we needed. When I was going through a tough time, because obviously businesses, you have a month, let's say, where everything is great, and then suddenly something happens and it seems to keep going on, and you feel very low. It's very challenging on the relationship, and I need to talk a lot. I can't keep it in, some people, they're able to go to work and not talk about it. I cannot do that. So I had to understand that there were times of the day I needed to say things once, I negotiate with my husband once a day. I can say something. So then it turns into a joke and it's fine, but it is very difficult for family life, definitely.
I think sometimes as well, we know that sometimes we just need to talk, like you said, it's the emotional side of running a business. Yeah. Sometimes you need just to tell someone your frustration, and the other person is going to try and problem solve for you. And actually they don't, like in the case of your husband there, like it was a pretty inappropriate, it was a well-meaning attempt, inappropriate. But actually there is no solution that anyone could give you. And sometimes you just want someone to listen and say, gosh, that's rubbish, isn't it? Yeah. Whereas they're kind of offering you a solution, then you get angry with them because they're trying to solve it. And you're like, but I could have done that. Or, it's just, you just want to be heard. You want it to vent and get it out there.
And I want compliments. It's true. I told him, just tell me I'm amazing. Yes. It'll make me feel better.
So that's the easiest thing. So for any husband or wife or partner out there, if their partner comes home, and just tell them they're wonderful and everything is fine.
Yeah, definitely. It's that easy, I think. But still, I mean, the patience that our other halves need to have, because at the same time, I always think, they didn't make that decision. So I always try to be respectful of that, because I know they also work hard, and somehow they don't bring the work home the way we do.
It's really funny. My husband has started a business this year now.
Oh, you're two now.
So yeah, so he comes home and like he does all of this, but I'm just like, because I know what it's like to be that, so I just let him say it, and like, don't offer any advice, just listen, go, yes dear. And I'm, like sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, I really don't want to, you've already told me this, I don't need to hear the minutiae of every meeting that you've had. But I also understand, like, it's really exciting to him, and he's got no one else to tell it to. So
exactly.
So hopefully I'm being a good supportive spouse.
Yes, of course. Well, he's lucky that he has someone with the experience, and that you actually ask yourself these questions. It's nice.
Yes, absolutely. So am I right? Did you get together a network of female entrepreneurs in the summer?
Yes, absolutely. So the reason is really, like I said at the beginning of this conversation, I really feel that I owe a lot of the success of the Geraldine London brand to the support I've had. I'm very lucky. Like we were talking about my family. I have clients that I was lucky to meet through alterations, who are journalists or ladies who had incredible careers in business and things, and they really cared because we developed a lovely relationship, and they all offered me their advice and a helping hand, or even they bought my headbands, which was incredibly helpful in the first few months. And I realized that really what you need when you start a business is that support, whether it is financial, an advice, or mental, because it's very difficult, especially at the moment. And also I feel like for women in particular during COVID, I mean, I don't have children, but I know that a lot of women had to look after their children. So that's a challenge. And, stereotypically, they do look after children more than men, or, a lot of women were laid off, or it does seem like women got the worst part. And I really felt strongly about creating a support network where I could share as much of the support that I received to other women who launched their businesses during the pandemic, just like me. And it's really cool because actually all of these women have really great ideas, but what makes the business is them, how they are doing it, and how committed they are to it. And it's so nice to get to know women when they've just launched, why they did it and what do they need, etc. And so we meet once every 2 weeks. We celebrate our achievements. So we say, well done, this and for doing this, and on your sales and on the feature or whatever. And then one of the businesses takes over and says what her problem is, and all of us brainstorm ideas or tell her what worked for us. So that's one thing we do. And then yesterday we did a Q&A. So most of the girls wanted to know about social media. And so we all shared what worked for us, what didn't work for us. And it's all very practical things. So we say, oh, last week I did a giveaway and we did it like this, and that way I got so many more followers and I got X amount of sales, or and it's very actionable, and I think that they like that very much. So it's a lovely network.
Fantastic. That sounds like exactly the kind of thing like as you need as any entrepreneur, female or otherwise, isn't it?
Yeah. And you feel so energized coming out of that meeting, because we're all on the same boat. They launched their businesses at the same time as I did, so the bond is really strong. We're all about on the same place. And so at some point one of the members told me, oh, you know what, I feel like I shouldn't be part of the group because I'm now rethinking the whole business model, and I feel like I'm not as settled as you. And I said, no, we all did this. We all go through these moments of doubts. And in fact, you should stay even more because you're having these doubts, and maybe you can share them with us. And perhaps we can tell you what our advice is. And so that way they don't feel alone,
Yeah, and I think that's really, it's almost the antithesis of what social media is, because I think if you, without that really honest group of people, and you just go on social media and you look and everyone presents the best version of their life and their business, and sometimes this is not even an accurate version, it's portrayed in a different way. So it's very easy if you are having the natural, as you said, every business has its ups and downs. They have its good months, its bad months. We all have struggles, we have successes, we all have failures. That's just part of growing. And if you don't have failure in business, I think it means that actually you're not trying, you're being too safe, because it's part of business, it's experimenting. But if you don't have that group of women or men or anyone who is supportive and honest, and you're just on your own looking at social media, it's really easy to imagine that everyone else is having an easy time and there's something wrong with you or your business, because not every day you're not like drinking cocktails in an infinity pool. There's something wrong, and that your business isn't going to succeed, because the reality, as you know, behind the scenes is very different. So I think it's really
actually, I'm so sorry. So actually, so the support network, we called it Damn the Pan, so for Damn the Pandemic. And now I'm encouraging all our members, but also other ladies, to share their damn the pan moment. And it has been so funny to see what's happened. Where, for example, a lady, one of our members called the Apple support, the computer Apple, and they to say, I have this problem with my email account or something like this. And Apple responded to her, oh, just contact your IT department. And this is, and she said, but it's just me, I'm alone, I can't do this. And so obviously that was a damn the pan moment. It was sort of, what am I doing in this? It's, or, when we try to take pictures of our products. I mean, I've been taking pictures of my headbands in my kitchen for the past, since March, and this is not normal. I should be able to go to a studio and that was a bit of a damn the pan moment. But the beauty of these moments is that it forces you to be resourceful and actually to find solutions that you wouldn't, that maybe even you would have paid, you would have outsourced it, you would have wasted money. And actually, because you were forced to figure it out by yourself, you've saved money and you've gained skills. And that's also so it's not just an entrepreneurial thing, it's also very relevant to these times where you need to find a different way of doing things.
Absolutely. And I think times like this, it's the more creative, resourceful people who really come to the top. And it's actually time for real creativity, because as you said, a lot of the things that we'd normally rely on aren't there for us. And if you look, I once read an article about why a recession is a great time to start a business. And there are so many famous businesses like Disney, like I think it's FedEx and Xerox, companies like that were all started in depressions and recessions. So sometimes out of, like Geraldine London, out of need and necessity, that creativity leads to something amazing that could end up being a bigger business than the business that you started out with.
Well, I'm touching wood.
Thank you. It's been really lovely talking to you. Is there any parting wisdom that you'd want to share? Any like if you were going to talk to Alexia 5 years ago, what would you say to her at that point?
So I'm not a very Instagram quote inspiring. I'm so sorry, but what I would say is save your money. 5 years ago, Alexia got this investment and felt like shopping, essentially. I thought, oh, great, I'll buy the pretty chandelier. It's okay, it's just a few alterations and I'll get the money back. I feel like now I understand that actually you should only spend money where you absolutely must. If you are in a luxury or in a very high-end or quality world, you spend your money only on your product or the exact service that you're offering. But things like creating your own websites, really, you can do it on your own, especially at the beginning. I really recommend also not wasting money on Instagram ads at the beginning. Just really trying to do as much of it for free, grow organically, even if it's a tiny bit, get the learning for less money, figure out what works, and then put the money where you know things work. And this is what I've had to learn the very hard way. And I really regret actually having wasted money on things that I later on realized didn't work, but the investment was made already. So I'm sorry, it's not inspiring.
It's really good advice, and I totally agree with that. I did the same as well. I spent money on things at the start that now I should have waited, because I now know that I might as well just flush it down the loo.
We're excitable at the beginning, yes. And I think that's the problem.
We are. And I think, and also there is this sort of desire to grow really quickly, and actually it's good to grow more slowly, because you make smaller mistakes, or you make less expensive mistakes on a smaller scale. As your business gets bigger, it's harder to come back from mistakes, or those mistakes cost you more. So as you say, when you keep it small in the beginning, don't try and rush to be too big too quickly, because you'll learn so much that the business you have in a year's time could be totally different to the business you have now. But if you try and grow too big initially, that's a harder kind of thing to change.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Very wise words. It's really talking to you. What if people want to find you? Where can they go?
So you can, so with regards to Dame de Pan, if there are any ladies who have just started their company or even about to launch their company, they can contact me on my email, so which is contact@geraldinelondon.com, or even on Instagram. You can find me on Geraldine London's Instagram. You know, if you DM, it will be me answering. I'm by myself, so no problem. And you can just visit my website, and there's all my contact details on it.
Great, thank you. And I will put, because I put this up on the site, and I'll put links on everything there as well.
Fantastic.
It's been so lovely to talk to you finally.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing all your advice.